and welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day. And today I want to talk about the Acolyte, the Star Wars show that just finished up on Disney Plus. And I want to first give you a little bit of my background here because I have been a Star Wars fan for 45-ish years. Okay. Star Wars is my jam. I like just about everything that has come out, and the Acolyte is no different. I liked the Acolyte. Was it a perfect show? No, nothing is. Okay. No, it wasn't perfect, but it was fun, and I liked the mystery, and it did take a little while to warm up. Okay, and there's some structural things that I had a little bit of an issue with. Okay, and I'll get to that in a minute. But before I do want to give you all a warning that this is full spoilers. I am going full spoilers. By the time this hits, everything, for supporters, it'll be almost a week since the Acolyte came out. It'll be just over a week for everyone else. So, it's, if you want to catch the show early, you could subscribe over at musicfreegaming.com. But in any case, this is your spoiler warning. Okay, you can't, if you want to get going, watch the show without spoilers, this is your time. All right, all of that out of the way. The Acolyte was it was a fun show. It's a mystery, but the mystery is not, it's not what it purports to be when it first starts. Okay, the show starts with a mysterious person who we find out later is May killing Jedi. Okay, and so it seems like the mystery is going to be who's killing the Jedi, and they answer that almost immediately. The mystery ends up becoming, why is May killing the Jedi? Okay. Now, it turns out May is a twin, and her sister Osha has just been knocking around as a mechanic, sometimes doing some dangerous work, but, that's basically been what she's up to. She was a Jedi, or was training to be a Jedi, left the order, right? But kind of otherwise just sort of chilling. May fell in with the Sith and has been now trying to kill Jedi. Right? Seems like a way to spend your summer vacation, right? But the mystery is why. And it's emphasized in, I think it's the second episode, as she has instructions, May does, to kill a Jedi without a weapon. Okay. And so she's tried a couple of things, right? She did her first attack in the first show, where she ended up killing, was it Ilnara? Carrie-Anne Moss's character. And then she shows up on another planet with another Jedi named Torben, who she convinces to drink poison because it will bring him absolution, right? So it's like, why? What would a Jedi have done that was so bad? The one, he's made this vow to do nothing but live in the Force. This was a Barakesh vow, I think it was. And then it's so bad that when presented the opportunity of forgiveness and death, he took it. So what's going on, right? And that plays out throughout the series. Now, the story was told in such a way that they refer to like Rashomon style stories. But the idea is that you get different perspectives on the same scene that sort of change your view as a viewer of what actually went on. And that was sort of interesting, but that ends up, well, and it ends up building the show into the tragedy that it is, okay? And I mean that in a story style sense, right? This is a tragedy, just as much as Romeo and Juliet or Macbeth or any of those, right? This this is one of the few Star Wars stories that doesn't end in hope. Okay? It is straight up a tragedy. And what I find fascinating about it is it's an exploration of some of people doing sometimes the right thing based off of incomplete information, or sometimes to protect others, but not communicating, not understanding, and that leads to catastrophe. Okay? And I found that fascinating, right? So let me give you an example, okay? We find out during the third episode, I think it is, that Osha and May have been brought up and potentially created through the Force by a coven of witches. Okay? Now, these are not Night Sisters. They explicitly say they're not Night Sisters at one point. And they are teaching them combat in the Force. They are teaching them the ways of their coven, which, from what they teach, are all basically pretty okay. There's nothing really outside normalcy, maybe. There's nothing really weird. It's not like they're teaching them to drink the blood of their enemies and to, you know, they're not teaching them to destroy. Other than their one mother who is part of their combat teaches them, you know, a Jedi will not tell you before they're going to attack, and so is teaching them to, one, hate Jedi, but two, to be able to respond quickly and to defend quickly without, so that they can react to surprises and things like that. Okay, all in all, it's not bad. As you watch it, it's okay. This isn't bad. But when they drop you in on episode 6 or 7, you see the Jedi's view of this. You see Master Soul's view of this. So Soul, who's sort of the Jedi we're following through most of this story, saw May, rescued her from her coven, as he sees it, and trains her as a Padawan. Okay, and obviously it didn't work out, but that was the thing. He was just desperate for that type of connection. Well, we see his perspective of all of this stuff. It's like, hey, he catches the tail ends of things. He catches parts of scenes, right? The girls are being prepped for a ceremony that they're taught that, hey, they need to sacrifice part of themselves for the good of the coven and the people around them. And it basically a teaching that's not unlike most religious doctrines, to be honest. Whether it's Christian or something else. It's like, hey, we often need to sacrifice our will, our desires, our whatever, to help those around us. Okay? And sometimes it's a relatively surface level sacrifice, like tithing or donations or things like that. Sometimes it's a sacrifice of deeper meaning, where it's time and service and stuff like these are really common things in religion, and in, frankly, most societies, most civilized societies have some form of service available. Okay, not everybody buys into it. I think that's a problem, but you still have this idea of service and sacrifice, and that's what the Coven, I think, is teaching here. But when May describes what's happening to the Jedi, she says, "Oh yes, we must be sacrificed," which now has the Jedi's ears pricking up. It's like, what now? This little girl says she's about to be sacrificed and is excited about it. This doesn't sound like a good thing. And then when he catches the end of a training session, and there's one of the mothers who attacks, right? Attacks May and Osha, and May blocks the attack, and Osha's cowering behind her. He sees this, and you could easily see that from Saul's perspective, he is saving these girls from a life of abuse, right? It's easy to say that. It's easy to see that he really thinks he is saving them from something dangerous, right? But the reality is that no, it wasn't. Yes, they were being taught to fight, but not in a way that was, they weren't being abused, right? It's like if somebody walked in on like a Taekwondo training, and yes, somebody's trying to punch these kids and they're blocking the punches, right? It's not because they're being abused. It's because they're training, right? They're doing something that the Coven really believes in, and that's using the Force to defend and yes, attack. They're not Jedi, right? They seem to be pretty okay using the Force for on the offensive, right? But you get that sort of misunderstanding, right? Plus, there are tensions of there's something this Coven really needed these girls to do, and I don't know what it is. They never really explain it. There's a reason these two witches created these girls, but they never say what it is. Just that it's very, very important to the Coven. But Osha doesn't want to deal with that. She wants to go. She wants to be a Jedi. She wants to go where there are other kids, right? She has other dreams than what her parents and her society has for her. She wants to go do something else, right? But obviously the Coven, a lot, she's got one mom who's like, no, we're not. This is too important for us. You're going to be when talking to the other mothers, like, are you going to be, a leader or a mother? And I think it's Anastasia is her name, if I'm remembering correctly. And she says, no, here I choose mother. I'm going to do what's best for my daughter. And decides she's going to go ahead and let Osha leave to be a Jedi. Unfortunately, because the way tensions ended up growing of the witches are distrustful of the Jedi are distrustful of the witches, both just because they're distrustful apparently of anyone who wields the Force without Jedi training and or supervision or stamp of approval or something. Plus Soul's observations, incorrect because they were incomplete, but his observations that, hey, these girls are being abused, right? Tensions get high, and then it leads to a horrific action where Anastasia tries to protect May or something, and Saul reacts and kills Anastasia. And you end up getting the Coven takes over Kalnaka, the Wookiee's mind, and now he attacks the rest of the Jedi. It's just, and that fight was really cool. It was fun to see, but it was intense, and so you could kind of see now what is going on here? And that plays out, and you see some things from different perspectives. But you also see, hey, the Jedi lied to Osha to protect her. Because here she is, an 8-year-old girl whose entire family was killed. And it's like, hey, we'll give not a full lie. It's a half truth. And the reasoning is, hey, don't take her dreams away from her. Which, as a parent, I understand, right? I do believe in being honest with my kids, but I understand the idea is that, hey, they're not ready for all of this information yet. Which that happens to kids, happens to adults. Sometimes they need a little time to be able to process things before they can fully appreciate and understand everything that went on. Okay. So that was an issue. Right? And so that whole story plays out into this tragedy and into this Sith. Okay. You get this, they refer to him just as the Stranger. We actually first meet him as a shop owner named Khmer, but he's been training May in the ways of the Sith, in the ways of the dark side. And he shows up full scary helmets, red lightsabers, right? This is scariness on a plate, right? But he provides the other view for May and Osha, right? For May, it's here's your chance to get revenge on those that wronged you. Okay. For May, it was a way of actually processing the emotions that she wasn't able to as a Jedi. Because the Jedi teachings were more or less to suppress your emotions rather than deal with them, which is never good. And she was angry and she was upset because, her family's all dead. She thinks Osha killed them. And now she's sort of on her own and isolated with the Jedi. And she was never able to get past that. So she ends up meeting the Stranger, and he's a nice guy, right? He's not a jerk. He's not the hulking evil, right, that you get from like Vader or Palpatine or any of the other Darksiders that we've seen. The dude's a nice guy. He's got a sense of humor, right? He's got a point of view. He's definitely not happy with the Jedi. And he's got a scar on his back that looks like it was put there by a light whip. Which we meet the owner of that light whip, Vernestra Rowe, in the show. But yeah, it was interesting, and it was interesting to see Osha take that path to the dark side because it lets her deal with the emotions, and it lets her save her sister as well. And I don't think she's totally bought into everything Khmer is selling. She's taking the step willingly, and not because she wants to be the ultimate evil to be obeyed at all costs. Okay, which is an interesting story, which hopefully we'll get to see in a season 2. I don't know. I don't know if we will. Now, there are some things I didn't like. Okay. Amanda Stanberg, who plays Osha and May, does an okay job throughout most of the show. It's usually fairly easy to tell, is she playing May, is she playing Osha, even when they switch clothes and are now, parent trapping their way through a couple of things. I was not always convinced that she was a person. Okay. And this is a problem I run into once in a while. Heck, I see it in the original Star Wars. There are times when you can tell these are actors delivering dialogue. These are not people. Okay. These are not characters that are believable. And it feels that way to me. Now, I could be wrong, and other people can see it differently. I was listening to the Force Center podcast, and Jennifer Landa was raving about Amanda Stenberg's performance. And Jennifer Landa as an actor, she understands this a lot better than I do. So she may be seeing something I'm not. But I was never convinced, or at least there were a lot of times where I was not convinced that this was a flesh and blood character, and instead was actually just an actor reading lines. Okay, so I have that. Though Lee Jung Jae was fabulous as Soul. Manny Jacinto, I think that's how it's pronounced, as Khmer and the Stranger, was amazing. And then a lot of the others, like Carrie Ann Moss, we see her several times throughout the series, mostly in flashbacks because she dies in the very first scene. Okay. But she plays Trinity in Jedi robes. Okay. Not a lot of emotion. Very rigid. She is the perfect Jedi. And we actually see, it's fun. During the first couple of episodes, it really shows her as being wrong about a lot of things. But as the show plays out, no, she is right. She is accepting of other cultures. She is teaching peace and calm and restraint and everything you want out of a Jedi. But she's still painted as a villain by May's perception of what happened. But she's also very stiff, right? And I don't think that is a sign of bad acting. I think that's a character choice. Just like Trinity was not an open and emotional character for most of the Matrix movies. But especially The Matrix, which is the only one I will ever watch again, because I did not like the other two. And I think that's a choice. It's like when you watch the prequels, Qui-Gon Jinn, you get those glimpses of warmth and caring from him. But he is very often stiff and reserved and stoic. And I think that's because that's what the Jedi teach. And so you see that with a lot of the Jedi in the show, is they are living that stoic lifestyle. You see that with, was it Cord? Yord, sorry. Yord, who is a recently promoted Jedi Knight. He's graduated from his stint as a Padawan, and he shows up, and he is the epitome of Jedi pride. Okay. And I talked about on the podcast 2 or 3 weeks ago, pride is a dangerous thing. And Yord has it in spades. Okay. But there are a couple times I'm really cheering for him. So episode 5, which is entitled Night, was intense. The Stranger shows up, full, scary helmets, Darth teeth. I think I've heard him referred to. Some people less, perhaps in a more derogatory way, referred to him as Smilo Ren, but he was definitely not looking like somebody you wanted to mess with. And he wipes out, something like 8 or so Jedi. But that fight was intense. And he was wearing, I think what's in universe, I think it's called cortosis. I never got into the deep into the EU. This is where this came from. But it's a material that absorbs energy to the point where it can short out a lightsaber. Temporarily. It shorts out a lightsaber. And he has it as a helmet, and he's got, I think he had some form of bracers or something on his arms, van braces or something, at least on one of his arms, made of the stuff that he would block with, and it would short out the lightsaber. Well, Yord, who was originally told to get Osha to safety, comes back, mostly at Osha's insistence, and rejoins the fight after our mysterious stranger has been unmasked, and he uses the mask against the stranger. Stranger swings his lightsaber at Yord. Yord uses the helmet to block it and short out the bad guy's lightsaber. Right? It was a sign of quick thinking and adaptation, and not that it ended well for Yord. He began to see things from a different angle, mostly just permanently over his shoulder. It's not great when you have your neck broken that way. But yeah, it was intense, and I really liked those fight scenes. Now, I know there are some people, one channel I typically like to watch, yeah, they put up a video, why the fight scenes in the Acolyte are the worst thing ever, and yeah, I didn't bother to watch those. I like more positivity in my Star Wars commentary. I'm sorry, I do. Even when you don't like something. So there are some things I didn't like. Structurally, I didn't mind the whole mystery and way that was laid out. But they have 2 bottle episodes, which are basically completely isolated from the currently running story, right? It really jerks the flow of the show around a little bit. Because you've got the first 2 episodes. All right, we're going. This is cool. Let's chug on with this mystery. Let's find out what's going on. And then come to a halt, and the whole episode's a flashback. And then we start up again. And we go, and we go, and we go, and we do it again. This time from the Jedi's perspective. And that structure kind of, it left me a little cold. Okay, I'm not going to lie. I think it was interesting. I think what they told was great. But as a narrative flow, I didn't like it. Okay? But what you learned from those flashbacks was really cool. Okay? The themes, the story, the questions, the discussion of humanity, and this discussion of the exploration of not even necessarily right and wrong. Because I don't think the Jedi are wrong. I don't think the witches are wrong as a whole. But because they don't communicate, because there's a misunderstanding, both groups acting as what they think is right, doing what they think is right, working on their base understanding of the situation, and it ends up killing the entire coven. They think May is dead. Obviously she's not, but it ended up with a Wookiee using his claws to attack, which is forbidden in Wookiee culture. You've got a Jedi who is so disturbed by this, he locks himself away in the Force. I mean, it's just, it is a tragedy. And so I thought, overall, the show was pretty good. And I liked watching this. The Acolyte is a show I think that is better watched as a binge, okay? I think the way it was cut up in episodes was a little funky. And I think part of that is just, it's an 8-episode season. And while I'm not entirely, this one was a little bit more episodic than like Kenobi was, right? But it was definitely feeling like it was like kind of a TV show, kind of a movie, just sliced up into parts. And some of that didn't quite work on a week-to-week basis. But as a binge, I think this show is going to work a lot better. And that's something I'm looking forward to doing, okay? I'm excited to go watch this again. Which I can't say I have been about, like, Andor, okay? Andor was some of the best television in Star Wars. The stories were intense. The acting was fabulous. They had time to tell their stories. It is one of my least enjoyable series that they've put out. basically in the Disney Plus era. And it's not because it's not good, it's just because it's not enjoyable for me. There are lots of people that might like it. Andor is just not a show that I enjoy much. This is one I think I'm going to enjoy watching again and again. Okay? So yeah, so that's kind of where I feel, how I feel about the Acolyte. Where I'm at is I like the show. It wasn't amazing, but I don't think it was bad either. I think it was pretty good. It falls right in there, sort of a 7 to 10 ish. I don't typically like giving ratings to things, but it sits there for me right in that same zone with Ahsoka and Kenobi and Mando season 3. All of those I really enjoyed. They had their flaws. They weren't always great. But I've enjoyed them. And so yes, I liked the Acolyte. It was a good show. Definitely makes you think, and I enjoyed that interplay of what's going on and why are these characters making these decisions, and not being able to fault their decisions sometimes. It's like, yeah, you made the right choice and it ended in disaster, which is often a great premise for comedy, but this was definitely not comedy. So yeah. Now there's a lot more to the show I could potentially talk about, right? I didn't talk about Vernestra Rowe very much, who was a character that shows up in the High Republic books. I didn't really talk about the initial push as you're going through the storytelling that the Jedis are the bad guys of the story. And I get tired of that. But when they switch and you see the flashback again from the Jedi perspective, no, they weren't bad. There was nothing evil here. There were some bad choices, but they are not the bad guys that I was fearing that they were setting them up to be in the first couple of episodes. But you're starting to see that step towards the institutional rigidity that causes Anakin so many problems. Sorry, I can't get my verb tenses correct anymore. But yes, it's it's that rigidity that basically has Mace Windu treating Anakin like garbage. That doesn't teach the order to help Anakin with some of his emotional trials. Right, here's Anakin fearing to lose Padme, and Yoda is like, sometimes you just have to let them die. What else you get? That's attachment is bad, and that's not what Anakin needed. But institutionally, they were too tied up in the avoid attachments and all of this stuff. And I think we're seeing the seeds of that come out of this, right? So, all in all, I like the show. Watch it, form your own opinions. And until next time, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static signing off.